Get ready, folks, because today we are diving deep into the world of MI5. We're going to try to separate the spy fact from the fiction.
Right on.
Now, I know you're into this world of espionage as much as I am. I mean, who doesn't love a little bit of mystery and intrigue? But
Yeah.
we're going beyond James Bond here, all right? We are talking about the real deal.
Absolutely.
We're going straight to the source historical documents, cultural commentary, even some true crime
Yeah.
to really uncover the truth about MI5. We're
Yeah.
going to figure out how this super secretive organization actually operates in the real world.
Yes, and especially how that reality compares to all the books and films.
Because let's be real, when most of us think MI5, it's all very sleek and stylish in our minds,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
Like we're picturing high-tech headquarters and
Right.
super spies, gadgets galore, that kind of thing.
Very glamorous image.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
But is it accurate? Not always.
No, not all.
To really get MI5, we got to go back to the beginning.
Mhm.
And luckily, that LA Times piece we've got, it lays out those origins really well. And honestly, kind of surprising.
Yeah.
It all starts back in World War I,
Right.
basically countering German espionage. That's the foundation.
That's how they started out.
So grounded in real threats, right? Not some evil genius trying to take over the world.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, but hold on, folks, because things are about to get really interesting as we bring in Red List into the mix.
Yeah.
Now, this book, Red List, it paints a very different picture of MI5's early days.
It does.
Would you say that's fair to say?
It definitely challenges the authorized version of the story.
Yeah. The official narrative.
Exactly.
Which is so often what we get. So what's Red List saying? What's the big reveal?
Well, Red List is really highlighting just how fixated MI5 became on rooting out suspected communists
Within Britain itself.
within Britain. It wasn't just enemy spies. It was
Oh, wow.
intellectuals, activists, anyone they deemed even remotely, even slightly left-leaning.
Whoa, hold on a sec. So we're talking authors, professors. I mean, even members of parliament weren't off limits.
Right, exactly.
Just because of their political views. That is wild.
It's pretty intense when you think about it.
It really is. What was driving this fear of communist subversion? Was it really that big of a deal, or were they blowing it out of proportion?
Well, from what I gather, Red List suggests that MI5's top brass, they genuinely believe that communism was a real danger.
Like a existential threat.
Like a true threat,
Yeah.
capable of bringing down British society as they knew it.
Wow.
So they saw it as their duty to identify potential sympathizers,
Yeah.
even if the evidence was, shall we say, a little thin.
Okay, but that's what's scary, right? At
Okay.
what point does legitimate dissent just become dangerous subversion in their eyes?
Right, exactly.
That's a slippery slope. And this is the 1950s, right?
Okay.
Not exactly known for being the most tolerant of times.
Exactly. It's a different time.
It really makes you think, though, because those worries about surveillance back then,
Yeah,
they echo in the present in some really unsettling ways.
they do.
Think about programs like Prevent Today, which is supposed to counter extremism.
All right,
Good goal, obviously.
of course.
But you also have these concerns about whether it stifles dissent or targets people for their beliefs instead of actual, illegal activity.
Right, right. It's that balance, isn't it?
It's such a tough balance to strike, and Red List really drives that home.
It does.
It really makes you wonder, where do we draw the line? When does protecting national security turn into, squashing individual rights? And it's interesting because this whole idea pops up again, but this time we're looking at MI5 through a different lens, a more, shall we say, entertaining one. Slow Horses. Have you seen this show?
Yeah, I've seen a bit of it. It's pretty funny.
It's hilarious. It's all these washed up spies, right? They messed up big time, and now they're stuck in this purgatory of paperwork.
Slough House.
Slough House. It's the anti-James Bond, and it makes you wonder, how much of that is based in reality?
Well, I can't speak to every detail, obviously.
Of course.
But it does capture a certain, let's say, a less glamorous side of the spy world.
Right. Less saving the world, more stapling reports.
Exactly. And the characters, they definitely play up those stereotypes, for sure.
Especially Jackson Lamb.
Yeah.
The boss, right? I mean, come on, the guy's a mess. Questionable hygiene, zero respect for authority. Please tell me there's at least a little bit of truth to that character.
I can't comment on the personal grooming habits of MI5 agents. But what Slow Horses does well, it's satire, right?
Yeah.
But it's satire that highlights the absurdity that you find in these big bureaucratic organizations. And that part, that rings true.
Makes you wonder what else they get right, huh? Like Red List mentions this whole deep swimmer concept and an agent who goes so deep undercover they practically disappear, sometimes for years. Is that just a fictional trope, or is there any truth to that?
Deep swimmer. That's a good one. The term itself, it's probably more fiction than fact.
Yeah.
But the underlying idea, that's very real.
Really?
Oh yeah, undercover work, it's a huge part of intelligence gathering, always has been.
Makes sense?
But it's also, as that Red List book points out, incredibly complex, morally speaking.
Right, like when does an undercover operation become, like, too much?
Exactly. And Red List does a good job of highlighting that, especially with the whole inquiry into undercover policing they discuss.
It's like you're stepping into this hall of mirrors where you never know who's
Yeah.
really who, what their true motives are.
Exactly. It's murky territory.
Speaking of murky territory, the Mau Mau uprising, that's another example where the lines get really blurry.
Yeah.
That Guardian article, it really dives into MI5's involvement in that whole thing, and it's pretty heavy stuff.
Yet the Mau Mau Rebellion, it was a pivotal moment, both for Kenya and for MI5's own history.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a struggle for freedom, land rights, basic human dignity.
And MI5 was right in the thick of it, trying to suppress the uprising.
And not just suppressing it, but, according to those recently released documents, engaging in some pretty brutal tactics.
It's one thing to read about historical events in a textbook, right?
Yeah.
But to see it through these documents, these firsthand accounts, it hits different.
It does. It makes it very real.
And the fact that they kept those records hidden for so long, I mean, that just adds another layer to it, doesn't it?
It does. The Hanslope disclosure, as it's known, it really opened up a Pandora's box, and we're still grappling with the implications of what we found in those archives.
It's like how much of what we think we know about history is just like the sanitized version, especially when you're dealing with organizations like MI5, where secrecy is like the name of the game.
Right, exactly.
And that's what's so unnerving, right? It's like we're only ever seeing a fraction of the picture, and even that can be distorted.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating, but also, as you said, unsettling.
Totally. We start with these like thrilling spy stories, all glamorous and exciting.
Yeah.
And then we end up confronting these really uncomfortable truths about, power, secrecy, the human cost of it all.
Exactly. And I think that's the key takeaway here, isn't it? Like, we've gone from Cold War paranoia to colonial conflicts.
Right.
And through it all, one thing's become crystal clear. Just because an organization has national security on their business cards doesn't make them infallible.
It certainly doesn't.
They make mistakes, they cross lines, sometimes they do some seriously messed up things.
And they're really good at covering those things up too, which is, I think, what both Red List and Slow Horses are getting at in their own way.
How so?
It's like they're telling us, hey, don't blindly trust anyone who claims to have all the answers, especially when it comes to this world of espionage.
Because it's rarely black and white, right?
Exactly. More like 50 Shades of Grey.
Right. It's all about ambiguity, unintended consequences, that constant push and pull between security and freedom.
Which is a theme that, let's be real, is still playing out today in all sorts of ways.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up here, what are we leaving our listeners with? What's the one big takeaway from this deep dive into MI5?
Ooh, good question. Well, I think for me, it comes back to that idea of questioning everything.
Oh, I like that.
Right, like don't just accept the official narrative no matter who it's coming from,
Whether it's a government agency or, hit TV show.
Exactly. Do your own digging, consider different perspectives.
Be open to the possibility that you might be wrong.
Yes, it's about being like an active participant in shaping your understanding of the world, especially when it comes to these institutions that operate in the shadows.
Because the more we know about how power operates, the better equipped we are to hold those in power accountable.
To make sure that the pursuit of security doesn't erode our freedoms in the process, right?
Exactly. It's a delicate balance,
No.
and one that requires constant vigilance.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, folks, we'll leave you with this final thought. If even the most well-researched, carefully crafted stories about MI5 can be incomplete, even misleading at times, what does that tell us about the importance of seeking out diverse perspectives, of constantly questioning what we think we know? Something to chew on, wouldn't you say? Until next time, folks, this has been The Deep Dive.